The 10 most dangerous pickups ever made.
For 86, Ford has the most powerful lineup of V8 engines of any pickup. And when you want four-wheel drive traction, there's Ford's sub-independent front suspension to get you away from it all.
Now, don't you agree that my Ford truck was a good idea?
I do.
I have spent years behind the wheel of pickups, classic rigs, workhorses, muscle trucks, you name it. But today, I want to take you on a ride through the 10 most dangerous pickups I have ever driven or seen in action. These are trucks that, for all their bold looks or big promises, turned out to be more hazard than hero. I am talking about the ones that gave me white-knuckle moments on the road, left me stranded, or made me question how they ever made it off the assembly line. We will break down the specs, the flaws, and the hard lessons learned. Some of these trucks might even surprise you. They sure surprised me. So buckle up, because this is not just a list. It is a warning from someone who has been there. And hey, if you have had your own run-in with any of these, tell me in the comments. And do not forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. (1989) Dodge Dakota Convertible. I still remember the first time I got behind the wheel of a 1989 Dodge Dakota Convertible, and let me tell you, it was one of the strangest driving experiences of my life. This truck came with a 3.9-liter V6 under the hood, putting out 125 horsepower and 195 pound-feet of torque. You could choose between a 4-speed automatic or a 5-speed manual. The one I drove was a manual, and with a curb weight of around 3,500 pounds, it definitely did not feel fast. But speed was not the biggest issue. The real danger came from that roof, or the lack of it. Dodge thought it was a good idea to chop the top off their small pickup and slap on a flimsy soft top. The result was terrible structural rigidity. You could feel the body flexing over every bump, and in an accident, I would not want to be anywhere near one of these. And do not even get me started on the leaks. Any rainstorm would turn the interior into a swamp. It did not offer the fun of a proper convertible or the utility of a real truck. Dodge tried to market it using Miss America in ads, but even that could not save it. This was one rare truck that was rare for all the wrong reasons. (2004) International CXT. When I first saw the 2004 International CXT in person, I could not believe my eyes. This was not a pickup. It was a rolling monument to excess. I had the chance to drive one of these beasts, and let me tell you, it is as impractical as it is massive. The CXT came powered by a 7.6-liter T466 diesel engine with 220 horsepower and a stump pulling 540 pound-feet of torque. It was mated to a 5-speed Allison automatic, the same kind you would find in big rigs. The curb weight? A jaw-dropping 14,500 pounds. That is right, over 7 tons of truck. Behind the wheel, the size felt absurd. You are nearly 10 feet tall, looking down on traffic like you are in a semi. But that is where the fun ends. Parking it in a city? Forget about it. Taking it through tight streets? Pure nightmare. And fuel economy? I was lucky to see 6 miles per gallon. The CXT was designed to say, "Look how much money I have got," but driving it was a chore. The visibility was poor, the ride harsh, and unless you planned to tow your house, there was no reason to own one. It was not just unnecessary, it was dangerous in the wrong hands. 1970 Chevrolet El Camino SS454. I will never forget my time behind the wheel of a 1970 Chevrolet El Camino SS454. It looked like the ultimate combo of muscle car and pickup, a machine that promised the best of both worlds. Under that massive hood was a 7.4-liter LS6 V8 pushing 450 horsepower and 500 pound-feet of torque. Mine had the 4-speed Muncie manual, and let me tell you, when you floored it, the straight line pull was absolutely brutal. With a curb weight around 3,500 pounds, it was fast enough to scare you. But that is where the trouble started. You see, Chevy stuffed so much engine up front that the truck's balance went completely out the window. The steering felt heavy, almost numb at speed, and cornering, that was a gamble. It understeered like crazy, and the rear end never felt planted. The suspension was never meant to handle that kind of power. It bounced, rolled, and struggled to keep up. The brakes were another nightmare. Trying to slow this thing down after a full throttle blast was like asking for trouble. I had more than a few moments where I wondered if I would stop in time. The SS454 might look like a legend, but in real-world driving, it was more danger than delight. A straight-line king, just do not ask it to turn or stop. (2003 to 2007) Ford F-250 Super Duty 6.0 liter Power Stroke Diesel. If you have ever owned or driven a 6.0-liter Power Stroke F-250 like I have, you know exactly why it is on this list. On paper, it sounded like a dream. A 6.0-liter V8 turbo diesel pushing 325 horsepower and 560 pound-feet of torque, paired with the 5-speed torque shift automatic. The truck weighed about 6,000 pounds and had the muscle to tow just about anything. But beneath all that promise was a time bomb waiting to go off. I remember the first time I had EGR trouble. One day it ran fine, the next it coughed and sputtered like it was on its last legs. Then came the infamous head gasket failure, coolant spewing, oil and water mixing, and a repair bill that could make you faint. The truth is, Ford's 6.0 was overhyped and under-engineered. The EGR coolers failed constantly, the oil coolers clogged, the injectors acted up, and the only way to make one reliable was to spend thousands on bulletproofing. I knew guys who loved their trucks, but could not trust them for long hauls without a trailer full of spare parts. This engine turned one of Ford's most promising trucks into a shop regular and a nightmare for anyone who thought they were buying dependability. (2004) Chevrolet Colorado. I wanted to like the first-generation Chevrolet Colorado when I first drove one back in the day, but it did not take long to realize why it earned a bad reputation. The model I spent time with had the top engine option, a 3.5-liter inline-5, good for 220 horsepower and 225 pound-feet of torque. On paper, that sounded decent for a mid-size truck, and with a curb weight around 3,600 pounds, I figured it would handle most tasks with ease. But the reality was disappointing. The engine was noisy, and despite the numbers, it never felt strong when hauling or towing. It seemed to strain on hills, and the throttle response was sluggish. The build quality, let us just say, the hard plastic interior panels rattled before I even got the truck off the lot. The seats were uncomfortable on longer trips, and the electronics were hit or miss. I had switches fail, sensors go haywire, and more than one electrical gremlin that left me shaking my head. And do not get me started on the suspension. With the bed empty, the rear bounced over every bump, and the steering felt vague, making highway driving tiring. The Colorado looked like a modern choice back then, but living with it showed me how far off the mark Chevy was with this generation. 1996 to 2000 Isuzu Hombre. Now, here is a truck I wish I had not wasted time on. The 1996 to 2000 Isuzu Hombre. I had the chance to drive one that a buddy owned, and honestly, it left me wondering why Isuzu even bothered. The model I got my hands on had the base engine, a 2.2-liter inline-4, putting out a sad 118 horsepower and 140 pound-feet of torque. With a curb weight around 3,000 pounds, it struggled to get out of its own way. You could get a 5-speed manual or a 4-speed automatic, but neither one made much of a difference in performance. What really killed the Hombre was that it was not even its own truck. It was just a rebadged Chevrolet S10 with zero effort to make it unique or better. The ride was uninspiring, and the cabin felt stripped down even by budget pickup standards. The parts support, do not get me started. Finding the right components was always harder than it should have been because dealers did not know what to do with it. Resale value was terrible too. People avoided these like the plague. The Hombre was not just underpowered, it was pointless. It looked and felt like an afterthought in a market that already had better options. Driving one once was enough for me. 1994 to 2009 Mazda B-Series. I have had my fair share of seat time in the Mazda B-Series pickups, and I will tell you, they always felt like the forgotten cousin in the truck world. The one I spent the most time with was a late 90s model, powered by the 4.0-liter V6, which put out about 207 horsepower and 238 pound-feet of torque. That sounds decent, right? But the experience did not match the numbers. The truck weighed around 3,600 pounds, and it felt every bit of it, slow off the line, with a transmission that always seemed to hunt for gears at the worst moments. What really bugged me about these trucks was how obvious it was that Mazda had just rebadged the Ford Ranger without adding anything to make it better. The B-Series felt like the Ranger's neglected twin. Same bones, but with worse dealer support, harder to find parts, and a resale value that sank like a rock. The interiors were basic, the suspension got sloppy over time, and the electrical issues were the kind that left you stranded at the worst possible time. And while Rangers had a loyal following, the B-Series never built that same community. Every time I drove one, it felt like Mazda just gave up, and that is no feeling you want in your truck. 1973 to 1987 Chevrolet CK-1500. I have had the chance to drive and work on a few of these Chevy CK-1500 trucks from the 1973 to 1987 era, and let me tell you, they had some great qualities, but also one terrifying design flaw that earns them a spot on this list: the saddle tank setup. These trucks came with a range of engines, everything from the basic 250 inline-6 at around 105 horsepower to the big 454 VI8 making about 230 horsepower. Depending on the setup, curb weight was usually around 4,000 pounds. On paper, they were solid workhorses. But that tank placement, a disaster waiting to happen. The fuel tanks were mounted outside the frame rails, and that design made side impacts deadly. I remember seeing one of these after a wreck, and the tank had ruptured, fire risk off the charts. GM could have moved those tanks, but cost-cutting kept them in that vulnerable spot. I always felt a little uneasy driving one in traffic, knowing what could happen if I took a hit in the wrong spot. They were tough trucks in many ways, but that one engineering decision overshadowed everything. It is no wonder later models went back to safer tank placements. I respect these trucks, but I never fully trusted them. To 1984 to 1990 Ford Bronco II. If you have ever driven a Bronco II, like I did back in the day, you know why this compact SUV has such a bad reputation, and it is well earned. My experience with one was eye-opening, to say the least. The Bronco II I drove had the 2.9-liter VI6, making about 140 horsepower and 170 pound-feet of torque. It weighed around 3,500 pounds, so on paper it seemed like a decent little rig for off-roading or small hauling jobs. But once you hit the road, especially at speed, the danger became obvious. This truck had a high center of gravity and a narrow track, which made it ridiculously easy to tip over. I remember taking a mild curve a little faster than I should have, and it felt like the whole thing wanted to lean over and throw itself on its side. It was nerve-wracking. You always felt like you were just one wrong move away from a rollover. Ford tried to pitch this as an adventurous 4x4, but in reality, it was unstable and unpredictable. And the worst part? Ford knew about the rollover risk early on, but by then, they had already sold thousands. The Bronco II might look cool now, but behind the wheel, it was like driving a loaded gun. One 1994 to 2001 Dodge Ram 1500. Now, let me tell you about the 1994 to 2001 Dodge Ram 1500, a truck that turned heads for all the right reasons, but drove owners crazy for all the wrong ones. I have had a few of these come through my hands over the years, and while that bold semi-truck-inspired styling still looks great today, living with one was a different story. You could get these with a 3.9-liter VI6 at 175 horsepower, or the 5.2-liter and 5.9-liter V8s, putting out 230 and 245 horsepower, respectively. Curb weight hovered around 4,500 pounds, so the V8s were the way to go if you wanted it to feel alive. But under that tough exterior, the Ram 1500 was a ticking time bomb. The automatic transmissions were weak, plain, and simple. I watched them fail again and again, often well before 100,000 miles. The brakes, soft pedal feel, warped rotors, and worn pads were a constant battle. And the body, if you lived anywhere with road salt, you would see rust forming faster than you could sand it off. I wanted to love these trucks, the style, the power, but they spent too much time in the shop. In the end, what looked like a workhorse was more like a heartbreaker. And there you have it, 10 pickups that made history for all the wrong reasons. From dangerous designs to mechanical disasters, these trucks serve as a reminder that not every rig deserves its spot on the road. I have seen firsthand how these flaws can turn ownership into a nightmare, and I know some of you out there have stories of your own. So drop a comment below. Did I mention a truck you owned? Was your experience better or worse? And if you enjoyed this deep dive, do not forget to like, share, and subscribe. See you next time on our channel.